Question 3. Skull, frontal, occipital and parietal bone. This is the frontal bone, this is parietal bone, this is occipital bone. The frontal and parietal bone makes up the calvaria of the skull. The frontal bone has two parts, a squama and orbital parts. The squama has an external surface, and on the external surface you have frontal tuberosity, superciliary arches, glabella, supraorbital margin, supraorbital notch, and zygomatic process. On the internal surface you have sulcus of the superior sagittal sinus, which continues in the frontal crest and ends in the foramen cecum. And this is the orbital part, superior surface. It has impressions of cerebral gyri, and it has an ethmoidal notch for the ethmoid bone. Now the inferior surface, you have fossa for a lacrimal gland. And in addition, the frontal bone has a frontal sinus and underneath the glabella. The parietal bones have an internal and external surface. The external surface has parietal tuberosity, superior and inferior temporal lines. The internal surface has sulcus for superior sagittal sinus, continuation of the one from frontal bone, and sulcus for middle meningeal artery and its branches. The parietal bone has four margins. It has an occipital margin, a frontal margin, a sagittal margin between the parietal bones, and a squamous margin. And it has four angles: a frontal angle, an occipital angle, a sphenoidal angle, and a mastoid angle. Then we have the occipital bone. The first part of the occipital bone is the squama. This is the external surface of the squama with external occipital protuberance, external occipital crest, superior nuchal line, and inferior nuchal line. The internal surface of the squama is here. It has internal occipital protuberance, sulcus of the superior sagittal sinus, the end of the one from the parietal bone and frontal bone. It has an internal occipital crest and sulcus of transverse sinus. The next part is the basilar part, which is here. This is the superior surface with clivus, that's the entire area here, and sulcus for inferior petrosal sinus, that's here. The inferior surface of the basilar part has a pharyngeal tubercle. Here is the basilar part. And the last part of occipital bone is the lateral parts. And it has only an inferior surface with occipital condyles, hypoglossal canal, which is the arrow in here, condylar fossa, condylar canal, and a jugular notch. Now the three bones are connected by sutures. The frontal bone and the parietal bone is connected by a coronal suture. The two parietal bones are connected by a sagittal suture, and the parietal bones and the occipital bone is connected by a lambdoidal suture.